Nobody cared.
This is not worth a six-figure investment.
It's not that it maybe was a complete failure, but there just has to be better use of resources and time, I would think.
Over promise, under deliver sideshow.
What's up, Disgenerates? It's the Disc Golf World. I'm Jefferson, here to break down the entire Disc Golf Match Play series and why it was a fail. I should explain what failure means before people get their feelings hurt.
There was a super important disc golf tournament this weekend.
Super important.
There was also the Disc Golf Pro Tour Match Play Championship.
It feels like a classic Pro Tour, like kind of over promise, under deliver sideshow.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't even really mean under deliver from the golf perspective.
Well, golf's
I mean
great.
more from just like the event.
I would be really surprised if they bring this back exactly how they ran it, because I can't really consider it like, it's not that it maybe was a complete failure, but there just has to be better use of resources and time, I would think.
This is not worth a six-figure investment. There's no way that it paid for itself in subscribers or in ticket sales. It is a great and a cool event.
If this match play throughout the season and this match play finale, purse, all of that, stood alone and broke even, success.
Well, it at least took away from their time, though, right?
I'm factoring that into the break even.
Well,
It's you got to figure out a way to run this at a better like you cannot sink that much money into this.
I don't think it's a good idea just to add another live stream thinking disc golf fans will watch. Yeah, the diehards will be there, but you're cutting out over 100,000 people that will only tune in to post-produced. Why neglect majority of your consumers? Unless the idea was to get more people to sign up for DGN in order to watch the championship. Personally, I spent my Sunday playing in 20-degree weather because I didn't care about this event.
To talk about the actual match play, this was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, nobody cared. I'm sorry to say. Like, this was the quietest I've seen the disc golf internet. The Ulti-World Disc Golf Discord was pretty quiet. Reddit was completely dead. People were not really watching this event. There were not very many people there in person. I don't know that it really worked.
No,
It was,
I don't think so either.
confusing, and fans didn't really care, and players were kind of like, this is taking up my practice time.
How am I expected to remember what the hell happened months ago in these head-to-head matchups to even get to the final event? Why is there not packaged content that gives context and builds up the story? We got none of that. But don't worry, folks, Big Germ is in the booth, so it's all good. Charlie Eisenhood from Ulti-World called this event a throwaway, and it's hard to argue when that's how it was treated. Even the highlights were shitty, if that's how you wanted to follow. Because people, and let me get nice and close for this, no one wants to watch a live stream for 3 hours. Most of the fans want to play disc golf themselves, so give an alternative to watch later. A quick version that recaps what went down, cutting out all the fluff. That's my favorite part of match play. They go 6 holes with nothing interesting? Cool, show me when the people actually scored. Well, since they didn't give it to you, I guess we will. 16 players were chosen, then divided into 4 groups based on 2024 All-Star standings. Also included were the 2 players with the most points by the Open at Austin, and then some hand-chosen picks in there as well. Group A consisted of Gannon Burr, Anthony Barella, Chris Dickerson, and Luke Humphreys. Group B was Ricky Wysocki, Paul Macbeth, Matty O, and Ezra Aderhold. Group C, Nicholas Antala, Ezra Robinson, James Proctor, and Adam Hammis, who qualified based on points. Group D had Calvin Heinberg, Isaac Robinson, Joey Buckets, and also points qualifier Simon Lazat, but with 2 Z's apparently. There did happen to be an all-star who was unable to participate, that being Kyle Klein. Now that we have the groups, let's talk about how match play works. Unlike stroke play, the player with the fewest amount of throws wins the hole and gets a point. However, unlike go throw skins, nothing gets rolled over. Only 1 point per hole. So even if a player takes a triple bogey, they will only lose 1 point, encouraging aggressive play and highlight moments that can be shared for the community to marvel at. Spoiler, you're going to see a few of those later on, so better keep watching. The scoring system for the matches goes as followed. A win is 3 points, a tie 1, and a loss 0. Top 2 players from each group will advance to the championship and play for a prize pool of 80 grand. Now I'm going to explain a few terms you're going to hear repeated non-stop that will make you want to mute the TV. All square means tied. Halve means the players got the same score on a hole. Dormy is when one player is up by the amount of holes that are left in the match. And I hope you're smart enough to know what up and down means. Finally, it's time to jump into the action as the pros head to Nashville. only for there to be a damn hurricane forcing a reschedule. Not the worst thing in the world though, because at this point the promotion surrounding the event was nothing. You had the occasional ad read or pop up on the screen, but that was about it besides the repost of scores.
But the problem was, it's like the promotion of this, the complete lack of clarity on like where things stood in the matches, and the understandably, like with it coming one day before the start of the actual tournament, it felt like a sideshow, which it is.
Yes.
I mean, and it got treated as such by everyone involved.
Felt like this was a chance to hype up this new format of disc golf, but nope. Essentially went under the radar for the entire season. Was nothing more than background noise for disc golfers, or some taking advantage of free coverage.
It's head-to-head matchups, and it can help build rivalries. It's a different form of scoring, which is interesting to fans at home. So we like the concept. What we found is that it was harder to fit in to player schedules, harder to make it mean something, harder to expand the field, and included, a lot of play. So we were doing like 12-hole matches at the prior match play championships. In order to do like even 16 players per division, it's like 4 to 5 days. So, this is really a pilot year of an in-season tournament. And that's something that we've seen successful a little bit with the NBA. They have the NBA Cup, and they're continuing to develop that. In the Premier League, they've got in-season tournaments like the FA Cup that they compete for. And I think it's just another element that people can be, competing in, fans can enjoy watching. So if it goes well, we may expand the field to 32 or 64 in the future, and then be able to kind of deal with this in bite-sized chunks, where it's just one round before a tournament that's already set up, already going. It adds to the fan experience here on site, gives another day of competition to the folks in Nashville or Oslo or south of Cincinnati, Burlington, Kentucky, or GMC, where we're going. So it's something else to do in the week for the spectators, and we're excited. I'm really excited about this one.
If the match play exhibition is a practice run, then I hope they took lots of notes. What's the point of the preliminary qualifier if there isn't going to be an easy way to follow? All right, buckle up, because here's everything you need to know from the months prior. After the weather in Nashville made the dgpt reschedule, the Kansas City Wide Open was chosen as the new location for groups A and B. Bad Rock Creek is a challenging course providing both open shots and tough wooded holes. The front nine starts favorable for scoring opportunities, but the back ramps up the difficulty, including what is referred to as the 4 monster holes. The first matchup was what everyone was excited for: Paul McBeth versus Ricky Wysocki. Might as well get it over with right away. Not like this would be something to keep the audience paying attention to all season long. Why not just get the most anticipated heads-up battle out the way soon? Because why give fans something to wait for? 90% of world champions have claimed a victory on this course, which sets up perfectly for this face-off. Wasn't long before the action got started. Ricky missed his putt in hole 1, handing over the first point. The two kept close from there, matching each other's shots. Hole 4, Paul was in good position, but shortly after releasing his approach, he gave the classic McBeth look at the ground in disapproval, even though he's easily inside the circle. Wysocki found himself in an odd spot, pressed against a tree. In the match play format, there's no reason to not run it, and that's exactly what he did. Skimmed the bark, but managed to push into putting range. No doubt Ricky smashes it, putting the pressure on McBeth, who needs to make this in order to have. A couple holes later, Wysocki was staring down a longer putt well into circle 2. This time he would take a point back, squaring the match back up. Not for long, however. The very next hole, Ricky parked his upshot, allowing him to take the lead. Paul, wasting no time, pipes his drive on hole 9, completing the putt, and the match is tied up once again. Heading into the challenging back half of the course, playing clean is just as important as a birdie, with the holes dwindling. Ricky, looking at another putt from deep, drains it with no worries, taking back control of the match. Paul was in trouble on hole 12, having to settle for a tap-in par after going off the cage on his throw-in attempt. Wysocki, with the door open, finessed the forehand around the trees, nestling up in C1 for a birdie, extending his lead. Unfortunately, there's no video, because why would we want that? But Ricky threw OB on hole 13, way back of the basket, allowing Paul to take a point with ease. Continuing his momentum on hole 15, McBeth opted to go aggressive over the water on the left side, sliding into the circle. nailed the putt, and the match was back tied with 3 to play. Hole 17, Wysocki had a tough look for the birdie, but with little time to make a move, he dug deep into his 2017 memories and snatched the lead. Paul would do his best effort to throw it in on 18, at least I think so, but it wasn't enough giving Ricky the win. I would say that battle was worth the hype, even if it should have played out later in the season, but that's okay, because I'm sure there will be more epic face-offs saved for the future, he says sarcastically. The battle of the new generation. The long talked about Anthony Barella versus the phenom taking over disc golf Gannon Buhr. Doesn't help AB that he's facing the world's #1 at a course he's dominated in the past. There's literally a cutout of his head on a tree. Buhr goes up 1 on hole 3 after sinking a putt as the wind was blowing in his face. Barella, acting quick, throws his approach into the rock base the very next hole, tying the match. Followed it up with a clutch putt from deep to stay tied. Gannon, finessing his approach through the tree, had a look from the edge of circle 1. To no one's surprise, hits it going up 1 on hole 6. AB smacked first available on hole 8, giving up an easy point. Now up by 2, Buhr threw a perfect shot down the fairway of hole 9, extending his lead to 3. He wasn't slowing down either, crushing his drive on hole 12 the normal way, following it up with a textbook forehand into the bullseye, now up 4. Staying hot, Gannon smashes a forehand into birdie position on hole 13, making his lead 5. Barella needed to sink a death putt in order to continue the match, but wasn't able to connect, handing the win over to Buhr. He also went on to win the tournament for the 2nd year in a row, a real disadvantage for AB. The next match is Ezra Aderhold versus Matty O. After a beautiful drive on hole 2, Matty was the first to strike with the birdie. Ezra bounced back quick, squaring the match the next hole after nailing his birdie putt. But Matty O said hold my beer on hole 5, and just like that, he was in the lead again. He wasn't done there, lacing his drive on hole 7, putting his lead up now by 2. Matty not done dropping it like it's hot with another birdie look on hole 9, extending his lead to 3, heading to the back. Unleashing some of the built-up anger on hole 10, Ezra started to chip away. Wasn't enough, especially when Matty O decides to throw his best approach shot maybe ever on hole 14, and that would be enough to win the match. Last face-off was between Chris Dickerson and Luke Humphreys. Dickerson is one of the best at match play, and he showed that taking a 2-point lead early, hitting fairways and smashing putts, but most importantly, never finding himself in danger. That style is what will take players far in this series. Chris managed to rattle off a few points, but Luke was crushing putts from distance to keep the match alive, for a few more holes at least. Wasn't good enough to stop Dickerson from getting the win. Now, if you weren't able to catch this live, then your only option to see what went down is watch the VOD or the highlights. Some people will go back and consume the full 3-hour stream. Most will go check out the condensed version. The problem with that is it's just a compilation. There is no context or storytelling at all. How does that invest any fan to dive further into the series? Honestly, people probably just thought this was round 1 of the real tournament. In my opinion, a complete missed opportunity to build a new medium to watch disc golf. This can bring in more personality, do segments explaining players' backgrounds, what makes them good at each course, build a promo to create hype. I don't know, try something. Please. Feels like a throwaway event if we're experimenting with a new format of play, but not how it's watched. Not only that, but taking a step back in production, only allowing blurry videos with Nate Doss laughing at Terry Miller's dad jokes. So much wasted potential when you have generational matchups going down. Also, really dumb to have Buhr vs. Barella and Macbeth vs. Wysocki matchups at the same time. I know I said that already, but holy shit is that a stupid choice. On to the next groups nearly a month later. A real good time to address the previous matches or to explain the scenario of the next course. No? Okay, I'll do it. Shelton Springs is regarded as one of the best courses on the Pro Tour, so I guess it's a good thing the matches were rescheduled here. The tight wooded shots are tricky to navigate, making it perfect for this format. One bad tree kick could ruin a hole, but at least not an entire tournament, allowing for more aggressive scoring opportunities. Players that like small gaps and are confident hitting putts outside of the circle will find the most success. That's of course if they can miss all the trees. The first match, well, after this car goes by, was between two-time world champion Isaac Robinson versus the bucket hat king Joey Anderson, who happened to be in complete control early. Up 2 points, and after a sneaky putt on hole 5 makes it 3. It wouldn't be until the back when Isaac was able to take his first point, Found himself in trouble looking at a long putt to save par, but it seemed Isaac was finally warmed up doing things we all know he's so good at. That must have sparked something in him, getting another point back in hole 12 and then somehow going from in the woods to winning the hole. After a 3-point deficit nearly the entire match, Isaac found himself tied with 5 holes to play. Buckets threw a perfect forehand on hole 14 under the basket looking to regain the lead, but Isaac from downtown drilled the putt to push. That was a crucial save. Too bad he followed up with the first available on his next approach, giving Joey the lead in hole 16 as he stares down another chance to extend. Not sure how in the hell that putt didn't stay. My only theory is Isaac was praying behind the camera. Worked out in his favor, not only connecting on a long putt, but for Buckets to miss on 18, ending in a tie. The next match was James Proctor vs. Adam Hammis, who snagged a lead in hole 1. Hammis never let up, finding ways to score from excellent tee shots to making every putt that came his way. Proctor was already down 4 points in hole 8, which he managed to win with a solid putt, but that was his only highlight of the day, losing to Adam fairly easily. The final matchup on this course was Nicholas Antila vs. Ezra Robinson. The Finnish Cowboy struck first on hole 1, taking the birdie. Hole 3, it looked as if he was snatching another point, but Ezra from the knee somehow finds a way to stick the chains. That was enough to steal the hole as Nicholas couldn't connect on the wide open look. Similar situation on hole 5 that also resulted in an Ezra point, this time pulling ahead over Antila, who was not looking like himself. This is the type of track that suits well for both of these players. Earlier in the year, Ezra took down the Supreme Flight Open, a tournament that requires hitting specific gaps. Same goes for Nicholas at the Open at Austin. Each proved why they're champions, but it would be hole 10 that Antila was able to square the match, landing safely on the island. After that missed putt, Ezra came out hot and birdied hole 11 to go back up 1 point. Down and out of position, Nicholas had an awkward Anheuser putt around, or I guess through the bush, to push the match back to even with only 4 holes remaining. Textbook Ezra goes backhand, letting his disc do the work, slowly drifting to the right the entire way into 20 feet. Antila wasn't able to match, losing the point but clutched up on the next hole, putting his drive inside the bullseye. Going into hole 18, the match was all tied up, but it would be Nicholas who came out with the dub, only needing the par to secure the win, which he does no problem. Now, the coverage in Kansas had similar view counts to the actual tournament, but this time around, less than 25,000 people watched the match play at Cascade on YouTube. Still a lot of people, but a relative failure in terms of exposure or generating any sort of interest. Why is that the case? Well, for starters, I'll point back to the lack of promotion. The season has been going on for nearly 2 months now, and the most you get is an ad read or Instagram post. Maybe everyone is a boomer over at dgpt, but can we create any content that meets 2025 standards when it comes to educating a fan base? Someone needs to do a better job at, well, their job, because again, this screams lack of creativity and honestly, care. Besides pressing record on the camera, what emphasis is put on this event? There were more jokes in our channel than the dgpt creating any sort of fan interest. The Preserve wasn't originally planned for this event, but it added after the rain out for groups B and D. Many know this property as a birdie fest, meaning players need to come out the gate ready or they could have a very quick round. The big arms will have an advantage being able to get down fairways with little worry of OB. Match 1 would be Calvin Heinberg versus course designer Simon Lizotte. Can't think of any better advantage than being the literal person to redo the course for this year's tournament. I guess not that helpful as he lost a point right away. That's okay because he got it right back, but gotta give a shout out to Calvin for the full run. That's what match play is all about. This also was the time when the rain started to come down enough to bring out the umbrellas. Hole 6, Calvin's disc must not have been dry, resulting in a horrible shot in the worst spot on the hole. Simon followed it up with a perfect drive right in the spot to attack. Can't forget about the rain, however, now affecting Lizotte's approach. Now, I don't really know what happens next because the coverage jumps to hole 7, but it looks like Simon got a point there. If you couldn't tell by Calvin's hair, it's wet out there, making discs, grass, tee pads, basically everything is soaked. I really wonder if at this point the pros were questioning how worth match play was, but they continued on just as the rain did. The iconic hole 8 looked like 2 easy birdies. That was until Simon had to go to a knee under the branches, hit the weak side of the chains, allowing Heinberg to pick up and even the score. You can see just how sloshed the tee pad is when they drive. Still, Simon was able to crush farther than most human beings can even imagine. Followed it up with a nice approach, leaving him a short putt to gain the lead once again. With the rain letting up, Calvin took advantage, landing on top of hole 11, securing the birdie and squaring the match. Just for Simon to steal it back with the putt he's disappointed with for some reason. His expectations are some of the highest in the sport. It's alright, because he redeems himself getting the birdie on 13, going up 2. Extending his lead further on 14, only needing a par, and close it out with a birdie on hole 15 that gave him the victory. The next match was between Matty O and Ricky, who is considered one of the best on the property, winning multiple times including the 2 seasons before. However, it would be Mr. Roll Tide who was in control most of the match, having a 3-point lead already on hole 6. Scratch that, make it 4. Matty looked clean on all fronts, peering every shot and knocking down putts with ease, continuing to put pressure on Wysocki to keep pace. It wouldn't be until hole 9 where Ricky did Ricky things, banging a putt from the woods. Not sure how that was even possible, but more confused on why it isn't considered a highlight. Remember when I called those compilations shitty? That momentum would be shut down immediately when Matty smoked a drive on hole 10 in great position. Ricky, first to act, wasn't able to get his upshot on top of the hill, losing that point right back to Matty O. The two would match each other throw for throw. Ricky not able to make any ground, but still kept himself in it. Hole 15, he clutched up on a tough putt, but that wouldn't matter, crowning Matty O the winner of the battle. This time around, there were more people tuning in, but that's what I like to call the Simon Lizotte effect. I also want to mention that the Creator Challenge has more views than every match play event so far. Here's an idea. Maybe fans like to watch people they have a personal investment with, which in my opinion shouldn't fall exclusively on the players. This event had the ability to draw more from the competitors than a typical tourney. Imagine discussing with Simon before the event and have him explain his game plan. Let him get crazy breaking down how he'll score on the new layout. Chop it up for a 3-minute segment, then do the same for Calvin. Now in the beginning of the live stream, it can start with a dramatic cold open, and then you take that promo, post it on the dgpt socials, and watch the views climb. That would be such better than the stupid compilations they default to every week, because those are so badly done. I try to get away with just watching the highlights of each group, but half the time the important shots aren't even in there. How the hell is Ricky's putt on hole 9 not qualify as a highlight? This is how I see it. DGPT has created an audience on YouTube that likes to watch on that platform. Feed them more content there, not on other social media. I mean, still do that, but why neglect the core fans that would be interested in this? There's no storylines being drawn, context isn't being shared, or literally anything to make people care. Or let me rephrase that so the DGPT might listen. You aren't giving anyone a reason to give you money. Okay, back to your regular scheduled program. This time over the pond in Norway, playing the #1 disc golf course in the world, Krokol. Known for the beauty and challenge, this course combines tight woods, open fields, and major elevation change, demanding precision and power along with requiring distance and technical shot shapes. Match 1 was Hamas vs. Ezra Robinson, who got it going right away after smacking an ace in Adams' face for the first point of the day. Funny enough, that was what Hamas needed to get the blood flowing, tying the match on hole 2, taking the lead on hole 3, extending it on 4. Well, technically he can thank Ezra on an awful putt, but still, he got 3 points in a row. Ezra was able to claw back a few points with some great shots in the woods, as he does. By hole 11, it was all squared up. That is until Ezra sunk a long birdie, capitalizing on Adams' poor drive, taking back the lead for the first time since hole 1 and extended that to 2. On hole 16, Hamas was in need of something, but to his disappointment threw straight OB on the approach. Was rocky, but Ezra Robinson was able to claim victory. Next was Macbeth versus recent DGPT winner Ezra Aderhold, who was able to have the hole with the long putt. The circle 2 had been dialed for Bean Boy, and he showed that the next hole, making a dangerous putt around the trees, taking the early lead. That would hold up until hole 7, where Paul finally got something going for himself. Continued the good play with the crazy putt from the knee, but wouldn't matter when Ezra secures the easy birdie, going back up 1. Speaking of going up, Ezra goes big and finds himself well inside the circle. Macbeth goes the traditional route down the gut. It does land much shorter, but P. McB was feeling himself draining the putt on the strong side. Pressure got too high and Ezra handed it over, which is what Paul did right away on hole 11, throwing it into the woods, letting Ezra walk in a point, resulting in an angry goat. Didn't get better as he would go down 2 points after missing his putt on hole 13, and Ezra would nail it from down the hill. Down 2 with 3 to play, Macbeth needed to make a move. He was CTP on hole 16, but Ezra still gave himself a look. Watching that miss and an opportunity to strike, Paul choked going off the band into the water out of bounds, officially losing, giving the win to Ezra Aderhold. Next up, Proctor vs. Antila. Nicolas wasn't messing around and got off to a quick lead. Nailed an obstructed putt on hole 7 to go up by 3. James fought back in hole 9 with 2 perfect shots, trying to inch himself back into it. Kept it going after a huge hyzer, putting him in an easy birdie position. Even better when Nicolas goes OB, now only up by 1 point. Proctor found himself in a spot to tie the match with a long putt. Out of his hand, it looked absolute money, but somehow spits through all the chains. Potentially the dirtiest spit out of the entire year. Using that to his advantage, Antila found the circle on hole 12, forcing James to make a long bid in order to push. Unfortunately, missed and now down by 2. Nicolas kept applying pressure, parking hole 13. James, unable to slow down, sails past the basket into the water, giving up a point. He also lost another in the next hole after a solid putt from the Cowboy. Not letting up until the end, this match would result with a Nicolas Antila win. Here's a quick update on how the overall points are looking. Paul and Proctor not looking too good. On the other hand, Nicolas gets his second dub, though there's still lots of play remaining. The historic Idlewild has been a main stop on the pro circuit for years, regarded as one of the test of times, challenging players with demanding shots, rewarding gap hits rather than just power. Up first, Simon versus last year's winner Joey Buckets, who started right where he left off, focusing on landing zones and execution, avoiding tree kicks to find easy birdies. Was up 2 through 6, nailing every putt that was in his way. Then picked up another point on hole 7 to go up by 3. Lazat lined up a power forehand down the fairway of 8, nestling up near the basket to finally get on the board. Joey was able to stay clean with the sidearm of his own on hole 9, securing the birdie and back up 3. Make that 4 after knocking down the putt on hole 10. Buckets was able to cruise through the rest of the course without a blemish, getting the win. Former Idlewild champ Burr faced off against Humphreys, and it didn't take long for the shenanigans to start. Obviously, it's fun and games since this is listed as an exhibition, but also goes to show the level of seriousness in the eyes of some players. Or maybe Luke just knew what was about to go down when playing the world's number 1. Gannon was up 5 points heading into hole 9, but that's right where Humphreys wanted him, getting a point of his own and now all the momentum on his side. Won the next hole with the putt from distance, and right when he looked hot, Gannon smashed an ace on the classic Instagram hole. That's what match play is about. Highlights like this that can be clipped and shared. In the regular tournament, I don't know if he's ever running chains, but when you give the best players in the game chances to pull off stuff like this, they make cool things happen. All Burr needed was that $500 bounty to hit that shit on command. After that, it was back to the Gannon Burr show, taking the dub. Chris Dickerson versus Anthony Barella was next, and would also be a test of finesse versus power. AB was the first to score, getting way down the fairway on hole 3 with a spicy roller that curled nicely. Set up for this putt through the tree, taking the point. Once again, found the perfect landing zone and managed to sneak another point away from the match play king. Hole 5 sets up for a forehand that only a few of the best can stick. AB, obviously being a top candidate, shows everyone how easy it is to birdie going up 3 through 5 and added another on hole 7. Barella had no interest in slowing down and didn't do so until the match was his. Heimberg went head-to-head against another former Idlewild winner, Isaac Robinson. Calvin took the early lead off the jump, but the rest would be an intense back-and-forth battle. Both would match each other's shot, neither giving up easy points. Isaac had a long look for birdie on hole 8, smashed it, now up by 2. Calvin unleashed all his unspoken anger on hole 10, finding himself looking at the basket for a point, and connected. That was the beginning of his comeback, squaring the match until an Isaac C2 putt on hole 15. Hole 17, Heimberg needing to stay clean took the forehand gap, missing everything, scooting up to the edge of OB, but staying on the safe side. Tying the match, and that's how it would end. Yep, kinda boring, but that's how it works. Take a quick look at the standings as we head to the final group stage before the championship. Smuggler's Notch would be the final group stage, dictating who advances into the finals. From Group A, Gannon basically guaranteed his spot already with 2 wins. If Dickerson gets the dub, he's in. If not and AB wins, he takes the spot. In Group B, Matteo has his spot already secure. Macbeth had no chance to move forward, losing his previous matchups. And it would come down to Ricky versus Ezra Aderhold, winner takes the spot in the championship. Group C and D, there was a whole lot of factors depending on who wins and loses. Essentially, GMC's matches were the determining reasons on who makes the ship, which is a bummer so many matchups were playing at once because not every card had nearly equal screen time, so let me just tell you who qualified. Dickerson and Gannon tied, advancing him. Calvin managed to beat Joey Bucket, securing his spot. AB did his part, taking down Luke to move forward. Isaac defeated Simon. The other Robinson brother tied, but both still made the cut. Except that Isaac dropped out due to having a baby or whatever, so Dickerson will replace him. That sets up the championship, which took place none other than Hornet's Nest. A great course for a match play event because every hole presents difficulty no matter if you're off the fairway or on. The shots require immense skill, and that's exactly what should be tested. It's what the fans want to see after all. Well, for those that watched, because from the looks of it and from people on site, didn't sound like it was very popular. If that wasn't enough evidence, the dgpt took away VIP privileges and gave partial refunds, allowing everyone to reap the benefits. Assuming since not enough people bought tickets, but it's not like the Pro Tour gave the money back. Nope, instead offered a voucher for next season's event. You know, the one that will be debuting months later. Hopefully your schedule is open. The bracket was ready with all the first round group winners versus runner-ups, ensuring there would be no repeats. First was Gannon versus Calvin, the number 1 versus 2. Out of position, Burr used up all the time he had, and then some more. Worked out finding the bullseye in hole 3 and taking a point early. Gannon went with the forehand flex in hole 5 that was looking good, only for it to skip, roll, and eventually rest on the edge of inbounds. Left with an uphill putt to win the hole, there was no one better in this situation. Burr continued to throw excellent shots, forcing Heimberg to match to the best of his ability. Hole 7, Gannon was able to get another point, going up 3. After battling back, Calvin managed to shrink his deficit to 1. That was until Burr threw possibly the greatest shot ever on hole 11. Just look at Brian Earhart's face if you don't believe me. Calvin was able to put himself within easy birdie range, looking to claw his way back, but the door was shut with a putt from distance, Gannon having the hole. Burr played the rest of the course to perfection, advancing to the next round where he will be facing the winner of Matteo versus Ezra Robinson. That match took no time to get started, Ezra missing the trees and smashing the putt to get the blood flowing. Matty had a nervy putt in hole 4. With a downhill slope, if he misses, almost guarantees he loses a point. Thankfully, we don't live in that timeline as he sinks it, squaring the match. He found himself in a similar situation, this time in the woods, but still squeaks out the putt going up 1 on the 8th. Ezra was crushing drives, finessing around every tree in the fairway and knocking down looks when they came his way. After a few mistakes by Matteo, capitalizing right there was Ezra. Once again, he gained control and never let it go, allowing Ezra Robinson to move forward. Match 3 was Ezra Aderhold versus what many called the favorite, Nicolas Antela. That would be proved wrong, however, going down a point in hole 4, and after a beautiful tee shot from Ezra, was down 2 already on hole 6. Nicolas was able to fight back, but never looking like the Finnish cowboy we all know and love. The two battled it out, not exchanging many strokes. Hole 17, the match was even, but it would be Aderhold who took advantage, giving himself a putt, then executing when the pressure was at an all-time high. Used that adrenaline to crush his drive in 18, then put away the match. Onto the semis, Ezra goes. Last up was AB versus Dickerson, who had nothing to lose. Good thing for him, he's one of the best at this format. He went on to prove that in round 1, earning his place in the bracket, beating Barella with ease. This is the type of course you associate with the Robot Chicken, and it should be no surprise he advanced. Heading into the semifinals now to determine the final matchup. Technically, even though losers are still playing, but if there's no way for them to win, I don't care, so go watch the highlights or something. Friends Gannon and Ezra Robinson will be the first face-off, and Ezra started the day like the previous, taking an immediate point on the first hole. It would take until hole 4 for Burrs to square the match back up after a towering forehand lands him by the basket. Flexed that sidearm again on hole 5, this time resting by the basket with no funny business to pull ahead. Ezra says who needs one of those as he shows how to get the birdie in hole 7 without dropping a sweat. Continued filleting shots on hole 8 to find himself staring down a putt to take the lead of his own. Of course, he nailed it. Gannon found trouble that forced a roller, which is a sign that he lost a point. Smelling blood in the water, Ezra went full throttle, smashing big putts, giving himself a comfortable lead, and after a park job on hole 15, ended the match guaranteeing his spot in the finals. In the other deciding match, Dickerson struck first, parking hole 2 on the island for the point. Idlewild was able to get that back after a scary putt on hole 4. Didn't take long for Chris to get that lead back and hold on to it for the rest of the round. When Ezra threw good shots, Dickerson played even better, crushing gaps and hitting putts from distance. Everything was on full display. Coasted until the final putt on hole 17 for the win. Months of matches and battles all leading up to this moment. One last 18-hole round to dictate the match play champion. It started off like the 2 rounds previous with Ezra getting a point in hole 1. They both made the island look easy, each nestling up next to the basket for a push. Now up 2 points through 3. Ezra was on a heater, smashing a long putt in hole 5 to now go up 4 points. It felt like the Peach Pirate was going to walk in this victory, no worries. Chris fought back in hole 6 with a long putt of his own to get on the board. However, Ezra said, whatever you can do, I can do better. With a putt, I guess we still call it that, from 114 feet, bending around the tree, somehow tracking the chains to have the hole. Chris managed to chip away at the lead on hole 8 with a short birdie putt. Now only down 2 with 9 more holes to play. Ezra was back on his Superman shit, pulling out putts from deep like the disc golf Steph Curry. Dickerson gave his best effort to push back, but Ezra was playing too good on this track the entire weekend to let someone take away this championship for Baby Jed, taking home that 15 grand paycheck and also that sick belt. The potential to do something awesome is there, and the foundation might be set, but the execution needs to be done greater than what we saw in 2025 for me to call this a success. So many concepts are good on paper, but without pursuing them to their full potential, fall short. Does this bring in new eyes? No. Will it convince existing fans to get more invested? I don't know. Looks and sounds of it from the outside perspective, I didn't see the draw. Shit, I even played a tournament instead of watching the finals. I think step 1 needs to be a post-produced variety, and if you're asking me, should look completely different than the typical coverage we get. Take this as an opportunity to be innovative instead of the same thing wondering why the views are less. Also, since I don't see the behind the scenes stuff, this could have been a wild success in terms of, well, I can't even think of any, but the dgpt might. Okay, I'm done rambling about all this nonsense. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like because this was a bitch to get done. I'm sorry for the lack of FPO representation, but this already took an entirety to finish and I just want it to be done now. Thanks for watching, and if you're still here, why don't you drop a subscribe? Please, I'm begging.